I'm not aware of too many things, but I know what I know, if you know what I mean. You know that song? It popped into my head because I was listening to a philosophy lecture by a great man named Edward J. Larson. You can Google him. I don't know what you'll find. I downloaded a bunch of basically lecture courses in philosophy, and each one is about 10 hours. So each day at work I can get a pretty good chunk of one before my mind sets in and decides to be stubborn and not listen anymore. But the one I'm listening to right now, they're speaking about evolution and evolution in God, in the sense that where did the idea of evolution come from? And I think this is a very fascinating. The reason why that song came to the mind at the beginning was because of that the line in that song: "Philosophy is the top on a cereal box. Religion is the what? Something of a dog." I don't remember how it goes, but you can really understand those ideas behind kind of joking about philosophy and evolution and religion. And I'll try to make this one short because I just really wanted to express a couple ideas. But religion is something that goes back much further than the idea of natural selection and evolution. And we know that Darwin only came into the picture, in the last couple hundred years here. So that's what the lecture that I'm listening to is about. Pre-Darwin, what happened before Darwin. And some of these people that he's speaking about, these were people who spent their lives dedicated to truth, trying to find an answer. Many of the top philosophers, or best philosophers in history, were religious people. And a lot of them were Christians too. But they looked at things from many different views and thereby opened themselves up to a lot of different perceptions. Back then, they didn't really have a set standard of what, say 1,000 years ago, they didn't have a set standard of what to believe. And today, we're no closer to that. And this is what leads me to believe that nobody has the answers yet. It's because the answers are evasive, and that's what philosophy is all about. I mean, if the answer to life could be discovered, philosophers would have done it long ago, because they spend all their days thinking about these things until they die. So, one person can learn things all their life, and they can only build up to a certain point before they die. Another person can expand on the previous person's claims, except for the second person has to go back and confirm these things for himself to figure it out. So in that sense, we're spinning our wheels. We can't just have one person hang up their hat at the end of their life and say, okay, I'm passing the torch to you, here's what I've learned. Take it verbatim, believe what I told you, and just go to the next part of it. It won't work because our human minds are just we have to know for ourselves. And this is what leads to so much overthinking and overprocessing. But I think it's an important part of becoming a culture that gets along. An important part of that is to realize who we are and where we come from, so we can agree on at least that. Since I haven't seen that happening, it just leads me to believe that maybe the idea of life is to philosophize. Maybe the idea of life is to think about it. But before evolution, before the theories of evolution, people had seen bones and they'd seen fossils, but they didn't really understand it and put it together into a big picture. And when they'd find dinosaur bones, they weren't sure what to make of it. And for those who don't know, there are really no dinosaur bones out there. Bones don't last millions of years. What they are is bones that have been replaced by mineral deposits, and they're very carefully excavated and usually molded, and then a duplicate is put up, say of a skeleton. But the actual bones themselves are very fragile. My point being that when folks in the ancient times may have found something like a skull of a dinosaur, they're more likely to destroy it or not understand. However, this also, in my research about a year or two ago, it really led me to believe that this is where the theory of dragons comes from. As you know, the ancient Chinese culture would find these giant reptile heads with huge sharp teeth, and what else do you think? So before I forget, my what I wanted to cover here before I forget it was something the guy was saying that was really getting to me. It really resonated with me. First, he was speaking about the philosophers of history and how they've had these theories about electricity and how man and animal is made from electricity and spontaneous generation of flesh and all these ideas of where we come from, and nothing explains it. Even if there was a God that created the earth in 6 days and everything could be proven, none of that explains to me where God comes from or how the existence came into being. And a person can say, well, it's just always been here, but they're spinning their wheels, because I know there's not a single person on earth who could say, yes, everything just exists, everything's always been here, God made the earth in 6 days, and God just was always here. What did he do before he made the earth? That kind of stuff. The things that really go the deepest as to, even if there was a God, how is that God come into being? What was he before God? On and on and on. But the idea of these epochs, the guy was making a comparison in Genesis to the different days. On the first day, God; on the second day, God. And some philosophers have developed a general theory that these are epochs described in the Bible, epochs of ancient history. On the first day, man created this, or God created this, and then this, and eventually God created man. And perhaps the details are irrelevant, or maybe they are relevant, but that really makes a lot of sense to me, that these days could be related to epochs in evolution, because evolution is one of those things that is just so twisted and impossible to understand. Our limited understanding of it and our limited science is, leaves a lot to be desired. But I've never been, I'm not the kind of person who could step up and say, nope, I don't believe in God, so therefore I believe in evolution. It just doesn't work for me, because I've observed evolution as best I can in the books I've read, and from what I've seen, many creatures remain in a consistent state, and then there's the reduction. They don't evolve, Many reptiles are still the way they were millions of years ago. Doesn't mean that other creatures can't evolve, but what it means is that there's something directing the evolution, and there's something directing it the right way. And that's something that's always proven to me, that there is an existence of something called God. And I don't like that word to be tarnished by religion, but the word God to me, God is in my heart. I feel God. I feel this energy that is all around me all the time, that I didn't necessarily have any way to convey in the past, but I guess I still don't today. It's really easy for other folks to point the finger at one another and say, no, you don't feel God because you don't believe this. But I'm not, there's no way to argue that point, and there's no point. It's futile. What I do is I observe the people around me and see how happy are they. And if they're screaming at one another about somebody else, the way they believe or the way they think, it shows me a lack of maturity within that belief system. Because anytime a belief system is pressed upon people, that means that the person who's pressing it on people has a lack of understanding about the way that the world really works and the way that people work. It's just the same as dreaming that there's going to be this utopia on Earth and that everybody will be happy at one time. And that's a great dream, but it's another way of us pushing off until tomorrow what we can do today, which is making ourselves content and happy and enjoying life and being the best people we can. And it sounds cheesy, but really that's what life's about, in my opinion. And as I've said, I'm just one guy, with my ideas. But I truly believe that, there are many components to the meaning of life, but really it's to live, to explore, to learn, to share, to love, to help one another. And to grow as a species, because I really honestly do believe in a collective consciousness. And if that collective consciousness exists, I believe that our ideas are carried on into future generations. So if we learn something, that's put out into the collective. So it's up to us to learn something new. Not to just repeat what we've been told over and over and say, yes, this is true, I've confirmed it. But to find our own theories. And a lot of folks say, well, you know, things are what they are, you can't make your own theories to life, but I beg to differ. I think everybody can have their own theory on life. Some philosophers have thrown away all books and said, I won't be corrupted by other people's teachings. And others have based their entire philosophies on the teachings of others. Somewhere in the middle always is the truth. And I understand, coming from both sides there, why a philosopher would want to cast away everyone else's teachings, because it tarnishes and clouds your own thinking. But at the same time, we got to learn from what others have learned, and not make the same mistakes as they have. So, with that, I bid you adieu. I'm off to work. We're doing some cabinets and some doors and all this fun stuff. Can't wait. Namaste.